Since January 2026, 4 opposition parties in Nigeria have been destabilized by internal crises, factional litigation, or forced leadership changes. In every single case, one pattern repeats. The crisis began shortly after prominent opposition figures refused offers of alignment with the Tinubu administration. That is not coincidence, that is strategy. And now, Tinubu is turning his attention to the NDC, the one platform that has managed to consolidate Peter Obi, Rabiu Kwankwaso, and Aishatu Binani under the same roof. The question is not whether he will try to buy, split, or break this party. The question is, which figures inside the NDC are already in conversation with Abuja, and what are they being offered? Stay with me, because by the time this video is over, you will have a framework for reading every political defection and party crisis that happens in Nigeria between now and February 2027. What is the NDC and why does it matter now? The Nigeria Democratic Congress was registered by INEC and relaunched under Senator Seriake Dickson, former governor of Bayelsa State. When Dickson launched the party in March 2026, it was widely dismissed as peripheral. That perception has since changed dramatically. By early May 2026, Peter Obi, the 2023 Labour Party presidential candidate who energized an entire generation of Nigerian voters, and Rabiu Kwankwaso, leader of the powerful Kwankwasia movement, both had formally defected to the NDC from the African Democratic Congress. Senator Aishatu Binani joined weeks earlier. The NDC zoned its presidential ticket to the south and its vice presidential slot to the north, a deliberate architecture that mirrors the Obi-Kwankwaso ticket many Nigerians wanted in 2023. The signal is unmistakable. At the formal joining ceremony in Abuja, Obi did something pointed. He publicly appealed to the Tinubu government not to bring crises into the NDC. He named what had happened to the ADC, litigation, factional splits, coordinated destabilization, and placed it directly at the feet of the presidency. Why did the ADC collapse? The ADC had attracted Obi, Kwankwaso, Atiku Abubakar, Rotimi Amechi, and Rauf Aregbesola. It briefly looked like the platform that could consolidate anti-Tinubu votes. Then the crises came. Leadership disputes, multiple Supreme Court filings, factional conventions, and INEC compliance crises progressively crippled the party. ADC's own National Publicity Secretary, Bolaji Abdullahi, alleged that Tinubu's government was behind the NDC's creation specifically to split the opposition and drain the ADC of its key figures. The most damning evidence came in April 2026 when Femi Gbajabiamila, the president's chief of staff, was reported to have told ADC lawmaker Rep. Leke Abejide directly, "Stay in ADC, fight them, scatter them." That statement, if accurate, describes presidential staff openly instructing a politician to destroy an opposition party from the inside. If the pattern is real, if this is a deliberate, coordinated playbook, then the NDC is not a destination, it is the next target. And the figures inside it who are most vulnerable to being bought, pressured, or flipped are already identifiable. We will name them before this video ends. Before we go further, if you're new here, Naija Brief exists for one reason: to give Nigerians the political analysis that mainstream media won't. Whether you're in Abuja, Lagos, Kano, Port Harcourt, or London, this channel is for you. Hit subscribe and stay with me. This gets deeper. The Legal Weaponization Playbook. Nigeria's Electoral Act and Party Registration Framework create a system structurally vulnerable to interference. Any registered party member, regardless of seniority, can file a lawsuit challenging leadership elections, convention procedures, or INEC compliance. With multiple factions filing simultaneously, a party can be functionally paralyzed without a single vote being cast against it. The Electoral Act of 2022 requires parties to submit membership registers to INEC as a precondition for candidate nomination. Litigation that delays this process can exclude a party from the 2027 election altogether, even if the party's leadership is otherwise capable and organized. You do not need to win in court, you just need to keep the case alive long enough to miss INEC deadlines. Nigeria's courts, particularly at trial and appellate levels, are slow enough and politically susceptible enough that this strategy has a documented track record. Section 233 of the 1999 Constitution requires political parties to conduct their affairs in accordance with their constitutions. This has been used repeatedly as the hook for factional litigation, accusing leadership of constitutional violations, then seeking court orders that freeze assets, void elections, or install parallel leadership structures. INEC's role: umpire or instrument. INEC is constitutionally independent. In practice, its responsiveness to party crises, which parallel leadership structures it recognizes, which convention results it accepts, has significant political consequences. The NDC must submit a clean membership register by INEC's deadline. Any litigation that clouds who legitimately leads the party could give INEC grounds or pretexts to delay or reject that submission. This is not hypothetical, it is the exact mechanism used against the ADC. There is no constitutional provision that explicitly prohibits a sitting president from funding opposition party crises, placing loyalists inside opposition structures, or offering ministerial positions as inducements for defection. Nigerian law has no political corruption offense covering the purchase of loyalty at the party level. This is the gap that makes the alleged Tinubu playbook both effective and extremely difficult to prosecute. The institutional framework tells us how the attack is likely to come. The political strategy layer tells us who the targets are, which zones they represent, and what Tinubu stands to gain from each one. This is where it gets specific.
Now, if what I just told you surprises you, drop a comment below. I want to know your reaction before we get to the part that changes everything. Rabiu Kwankwaso, Northwest. Kwankwaso controls a ground-level political machine in Kano State that delivered approximately 1.5 million votes in 2023. Arguably, the single largest organized bloc in northern Nigeria outside the APC itself. Tinubu lost the North badly in 2023. Kano and the Northwest are essential to any credible 2027 re-election path. The Kwankwasia movement's own spokesman has denied defection talks while acknowledging Kwankwaso and Tinubu have a long working relationship dating to their shared role building the APC in 2013. Kwankwaso rejected an early administration offer, but rejection of a first offer is not the same as permanent resistance. What Tinubu could offer: a guaranteed Northwest governorship in 2027, resolution of legal troubles, or a future presidential endorsement for 2031. Peter Obi, Southeast. Obi's 2023 electoral base was the single most significant mobilization of young, urban, educated Nigerian voters in the country's democratic history. He won Lagos State outright. His departure from any platform demoralizes an entire generation of reform-aligned voters. Neutralizing Obi does not require buying him. It requires discrediting him, exhausting him through litigation, or making the NDC unusable as a platform before INEC deadlines. Obi has publicly stated he expects the Tinubu government to create crises in the NDC, a declaration that both preempts the narrative and puts the judiciary on notice that a pre-planned interference is anticipated. Aishatu Binani, Northeast. Senator Binani left the APC for the ADC 9 months before joining the NDC. She is a former APC governorship candidate in Adamawa State, a state that is politically competitive and sits within the volatile Northeast. Her presence gives the NDC a foothold in a region where it had little prior structure. She is among the NDC figures most vulnerable to a return offer, Her career was built within the APC, and her core network of political allies, security contacts, and federal patronage connections all run through Abuja. Seriake Dickson, South-South. Dickson is the structural anchor of the NDC. Without him, the party has no legal stability, no institutional memory, and no credibility as a durable platform. He's also in a complex position. His Bayelsa successor, Governor Diri, defected to the APC, reducing Dickson's gubernatorial leverage. His public insistence that the NDC is not a special purpose vehicle was a double-edged signal, a warning to Obi and Kwankwaso and to Tinubu's team, evidence of internal tension already at play. The silent stakeholders. Watch also the former APC figures now inside the NDC ecosystem, Ovi Omoageje of Delta and Mohammed El-Rufai, son of Nasir El-Rufai. Their presence may reflect genuine opposition, or it may serve as intelligence conduits back to the APC's internal machinery. And the obedient movement's grassroots organizers and youth mobilizers, who cannot be bought in the conventional sense, but who can be demoralized, confused, or driven to apathy if the NDC's institutional credibility is damaged. Voter apathy is Tinubu's most powerful tool for 2027. Naming it changes how you understand every NDC news story you will see from here forward.
The one-party state question. Multiple analysts and opposition figures have used the phrase one-party state to describe where Nigeria is heading. With a growing number of governors and federal lawmakers aligning with the APC and multiple opposition platforms simultaneously destabilized, the concern has structural backing, not just rhetorical heat. If the NNDPC is successfully fragmented before INEC's nomination deadlines, and if the ADC remains crippled, the 2027 election could feature Tinubu running against a fractured field of 4 to 6 platforms, none of which has the organizational coherence to mobilize a unified challenge. A first-round victory with a plurality becomes structurally achievable. What it means for ordinary Nigerians. With nearly 35 million Nigerians projected to face acute food insecurity in 2026, this is not an abstract debate. A government that cannot be challenged electorally has no structural incentive to reverse the economic policies causing that insecurity. Democratic competition is not just a political ideal, it is an economic protection mechanism. Every businessman in Kano, every trader in Onitsha, every farmer in Benue weighing whether to invest or stay in Nigeria, they are doing so in the context of a question the 2027 election will answer. Is this a government that can be removed? If the answer becomes no, the investment calculus changes significantly. And for young voters, if this generation watches its candidate get platform-hopped 3 times in 3 years and watches each platform get destabilized by the same mechanism, the rational response is withdrawal, not protest. Withdrawal. That apathy is the outcome Tinubu's strategy requires. The strongest argument on the other side. Nigerian opposition parties have been collapsing under their own weight long before Tinubu came to power. The PDP has factionalism in its DNA. The Labour Party fell apart partly because of genuine ideological tensions and leadership ambitions that predated any presidential interference. The ADC's crisis reflects the fundamental difficulty of coalition building across 36 states without shared ideology, shared structures, or shared trust. Attributing every opposition failure to Tinubu gives him more credit than he deserves and lets the opposition off the hook for its own failures of organization and discipline. That is a serious argument, and it is partially correct. Where it fails, the Gbajabiamela "stay in ADC, fight them, scatter them" statement is not circumstantial. It is a direct quote from the President's Chief of Staff, made on record. That statement either reflects a casual conversation between allies, or it reflects a deliberate strategy being operationalized at the highest level of the administration. Neither interpretation is reassuring. The simultaneity of crises across PDP, Labour Party, ADC, and SDP or within a 12-month period, all following the same pattern of sudden factionalism, rapid litigation, and INEC-denying pressure, exceeds what can be reasonably attributed to independent incompetence. Coincidence requires explanation. And even if every crisis were entirely self-generated, the absence of any institutional safeguard, no law against funding internal party opposition, no transparency requirement on litigation funding, means the system offers no defense against the strategy, even if it is actively being used.
What to watch in the next 60 days? Within the NDC, watch for the emergence of a factional dispute, most likely challenging the validity of the national convention that admitted Obi and Kwankwaso, or a court filing contesting Dickson's authority as national leader. If it appears within the next 4 to 8 weeks, it confirms the pattern is being applied. Within the APC, watch for targeted ministerial appointments, federal contract announcements, or infrastructure project launches in the home states of NDC figures considered persuadable. These are trackable through public budget and procurement announcements. At INEC, watch the Commission's response to any NDC membership register dispute. If INEC moves faster than usual to recognize a factional leadership or slower to process the main NDC submissions, that is a signal worth naming. What would confirm escalation? A credible defection of either Kwankwaso or a major NDC state coordinator to the APC before the end of 2026, or a Supreme Court ruling that destabilizes the NDC's leadership structure in a way that mirrors the ADC judgments. We asked at the start, which NDC figures are already in conversation with Abuja? The honest analytical answer is that we do not know, and neither do the figures themselves know which of their colleagues have been approached. That is part of the strategy's design. It creates mutual suspicion inside the NDC that no external actor needs to manufacture. The paranoia is the product. The institutional gap that makes this strategy possible: no law against funding internal party opposition, no transparency on litigation funding, no INEC mechanism against factional structures, has been discussed in the National Assembly since 2022. The Electoral Act of 2022 strengthened party finance rules on paper. In practice, the enforcement gap between what the law requires and what INEC can verify has never been closed. That gap is the operating environment for everything you have watched happen in the last 12 months. Measured conclusion. Tinubu has not yet broken the NDC. Peter Obi, Rabiu Kwankwaso, Aishatu Binani, and Seriake Dickson are still in the same party, still building together, still on track to present a ticket that could genuinely challenge the APC in February 2027. The consolidation that failed in 2023 because the opposition was fragmented is now structurally closer than it has ever been. That is precisely why this moment is dangerous. The more credible the NDC becomes, the more urgent its neutralization becomes. The window between now and INEC's nomination deadlines is the operating window, and both sides know it. What ordinary Nigerians can do is not passive, it is specific. Watch for the signals named in this video: court filings, INEC administrative decisions, ministerial appointments in NDC strongholds. Name them publicly when they appear. Make the pattern visible. Strategies that depend on confusion lose effectiveness when the mechanism is understood. That is the analysis. You decide what to do with it. If this analysis gave you clarity, share it with one person who needs to understand what is really happening in Nigeria. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.